What I want to do in this tutorial is simply name our project and then we'll rename it. Now I really don't want my project to be called Untitled, because if I left all my projects named as Untitled, then of course it would become very confusing and really of no practical value to me when I'm trying to find a particular project amongst many. So, easy enough then, just come up here to the third button. This is our Save button and simply click on there. As a result, this Save dialog opens up and you would then of course navigate to the folder on your hard drive where you would like to save this particular project. Well, I'm going to save mine here in this folder called Josh being the guitarist from the band. I could just hit save now, but unfortunately there wouldn't really be any point in doing that, because if you notice down here the file name is still called Untitled with the suffix .veg, veg being the extension for our Vegas Pro 12 project. Well, I don't want it to be called Untitled, so I'm going to call this project Gun 1, seeing as this project features the guitarist, as I said, from this band, Gun. And of course, once done, I could click on Save. But just before I do, notice down here where it says Copy Media with Project. Well, I'm going to check in there so that any media I collect whilst building the project will get saved with this particular project. So now I'll hit Save. Now, even though I checked in the Copy Media with Project checkbox, as it is, I haven't actually got any media or assets involved with this project at the moment. But all the same, I clicked in that Copy Media Options dialog box, which asks me whether I want to copy the source media, i.e. any assets that maybe I did have with this project. And this would mean that any movie clips that I've got will be collected centrally into my project folder. Now, as I say, the project is empty at the moment. We'll add some files to this in a second or two. Also, maybe I'll trim in the trimmer window later on once I've brought my files in, but notice that using this radio button here, Copy Source Media, would mean the whole of the file will be copied into our project. That's useful, yes, if we want to retain complete control. However, there is another option, create trimmed copies of source media, and that would mean maybe I only use a few seconds from a much longer clip, and if that would be the case, well, I don't really need all the other seconds of that particular file saving into our project folder. So by clicking in the second radio button there, we'll just copy the used bit of the file with our project. If I click it now, you'll see there is this option to add an extra head and tail in seconds, and it's set to 2 seconds. And what this means is, rather than just copying exactly the small range or section that we use, just in case, shall we say, 2 seconds will be added at the beginning, the head, and at the end, the tail of our clip, just in case later down the line we decide that we want to edit it slightly differently. You could, of course, change the 2 seconds there to something else. Now, I'm going to leave it as it is because I've got no files yet. And in fact, I'm just going to go to the first option there, Copy Source Media. And I'll simply click on OK, and there, we're done. Notice now in the top left of our user interface, our project name is on display, Gun 1. Right, that's how we save our new projects. So before we go any further, I'll import a couple of movie files. Now, you'll remember how this is done. Simply go up to File, then roll down there to Import, Import File, and then across to Media. And then you'll need to navigate, if necessary, to the relevant folder on your drive. Now, the movie files that I want to use are in this video folder. And once open, well, I'll just select the first 4 movie files, just for illustration purposes, and then simply hit Open. And as you can see, they're now brought in. Now, to be able to see them at this resolution, left-click on the horizontal division line there and drag down, okay? I'll just take it back up, because also you can use this vertical drag slider. Now, I'm going to double-click on all my thumbnails here for all 4 files to be able to bring them in, okay? So once I've brought them all in along my timeline, well, in my main monitor view there, you can see Josh, our guitarist. I can also rename a project if I make any alterations, or even as a backup copy for safety reasons. So what I propose to do is, rather than save this project again under a different name, i.e. renaming it without making any changes, then what I'm going to do is quickly trim the ends and the beginning of these files. Now, we are going to look at trimming in more detail later on, so just bear with me whilst I just trim the ends and the beginnings of some of these files. Well, actually, I think I'll do them all. And of course, I don't really want those gaps, so I'm going to left-click and drag to close up those gaps. Well, that is in an unsaved state once more, and you can tell that by the asterisks up there. Now this time, because I've made some changes, I want to save this under a different name. So I'll come up here to File and then drop down to Save As. And in our file name area here, I'm going to change the name to Gun 1 Trimmed, and then I'll click on Save. Well, that allows us to rename the project, but there is one more thing I want to show you, so I'll just trim away the end here, and I'll also do this one too. And I'll close up our gaps, so effectively, if I resave this under a different name, then this would give me a new project. So what I'll do first of all is come up to File and roll down to Save, and then I'll create a new version of this. So I'll go to File once more and roll down to Save As this time, and I'll rename it to Gun 1 Trimmed B. Now before I click Save, I want you to notice the checkbox here, Copy Media with Project. Remember we talked about this a moment ago. Well, I'm going to check in there and click on Save. This allows me to create duplicate copies of each of the assets that I use in my project, and they'll be saved in the exact same location as our project file, meaning of course that all the different assets from all over my hard drive will be collected into one central location. And here's that dialog box again. So one more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click in the second radio button here, Create Trimmed Copies of Source Media. Of course, you'll remember how this then saves my media files in the format and the length that is used within the project. So rather than having a 30-second entirety of a clip, for example, we might only use 4 or 5 seconds of it. So now, set like this, copied into our new project location will be just those few seconds, plus whatever we add in here as the extra head and tail. And once I click on OK, as you can see, Vegas is now going through the process of determining exactly what we need in terms of length. Okay, so that's a run through then how we save our project and rename our project, and all the different options we have to reduce our content size.